What's going on, everybody? Sam, Brendan, what are you scared of
Me
something? Way sauce. Everyone calls him that. Today we got a really fun episode. We're going to be reviewing the latest horror flick,
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. For those that you don't know, if you haven't seen SpongeBob, if you're not a German film enthusiast, this movie is a vampire movie, and it's like 90% the plot of Dracula. It was made in 1922, right?
Yep, 1922.
The original, and this is a remake, I guess you could say.
There was one other one in 1970 something.
Okay.
Nosferatu the Vampire, I think it's called.
We should watch that.
Yeah.
But this one we saw it after Christmas. Both of us were like, all right, families, Secret Santa's done. We're going to the movies. We got to see this. And if you don't know, we did a trailer review, and we were pumped to see it. And it held up to its expectations.
Up to the hype, for sure.
Oh, man, it was so good.
When I was leaving, my mom was like, I'm pretty sure this is sacrilegious. And then I was like, well.
Sorry. Going from good to evil. But yeah, so I got some notes here that I jotted down.
Little note skis?
First off, I hope this gets an Oscar nod. Like,
that would be sick.
We say it all the time. So cool. It would be, oh my gosh. Because we say it all the time how like horror movies are always snubbed. I mean, there's so many horror movies that should have awards like freaking Sinister or Conjuring, Hereditary.
Tony Collette for sure.
Oh my God, yeah.
At least, a nod at it and be like, oh, up for a nominee or something.
Even I've seen like, horror movie critics or just horror movie buffs that are like, that was crazy that Tony Collette didn't get it.
Yeah.
They do that with war films too, the Oscars. But that would be cool if it got, I don't know, directing, cinematography for sure.
Yeah.
It should get a nominee or something.
Big time.
Because horror movies, they need to get recognition because Robert Eggers is amazing, and this movie was spectacular.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's pretty much the plot of Dracula. I said in the trailer review that we did that I think this was brought to court by Bram Stoker's wife, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty similar to it.
And then I read somewhere, too, that they tried to terminate almost every copy of Nosferatu.
Wow.
And somehow it, I guess, went through, and then now it's, lives up to everything.
Oh, big time. And it's funny because when people were asking me, what are you going to see, or what did you just see? I was like, Nosferatu. Like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, you remember in SpongeBob? And he's like, who was flickering the lights?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah. I was like, the hash-slinging slasher. Nosferatu. And they're like, that guy? And I'm like, that, but a remake, but not silent and a...
not underwater.
Bikini Bottom. Not underwater, and it's not in black and white. What's cool about that, too, is that was a silent film, and now, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but now we actually have a voice to the villain.
That's what I think was the coolest thing, and that's why Robert Eggers could be so creative with it, or, Bill Skarsgård, at least, because, again, I was watching an interview, and I think Willem Dafoe was like, Robert Eggers is so cool because he gives you an idea of what he wants it to kind of be like, but then he gives you the freedom to, like if I said to you, okay, I'm picturing like a Germany accent with like, I don't know, but like a roll of the tongue, something. Just roll with that, okay? I trust you. You're good enough. And then go for it. And then like...
I saw you in it.
yeah. So like I feel like that's why they were able to just... They didn't have any like bias or anything prior. It's just fresh and new. It's so cool because, like you said, it's a silent film originally. So yeah.
And like Dracula is my all-time favorite book. I recommend the audiobook too because the accents the narrator does is so good. And it's just such a timely book. I mean, literally, they have an award ceremony called the Bram Stoker Award for the best horror books of the year. So he's obviously an influential figure.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
like, even though this movie is pretty much very similar with different character names, it's still so amazing. And I wasn't like, oh, this is Dracula. Like, I didn't give a damn because it was so good.
Yeah.
So I read up on Robert Eggers. I'm sure you saw this too. So apparently he wanted to make this for like 10 years, around the time when The Witch came out. It was kind of like a passion project, but for some reason he delayed it.
He actually was in a play when he was younger, I believe either in high school or middle school.
Oh, no way.
Of Nosferatu. And then once he was in the play, he got so obsessed with it. And then that's why it's still, as he grew up, he was like, I gotta make the movie.
What do you think, what's something that like if you were a director would be something in history or something that you'd be like, man, I gotta dive into this?
I feel like
Maybe sports or something.
Yeah, it could be sports. I also feel like there's just so many different, honestly, kind of like Robert Eggers, like a lot of folk tales that just like go so deep. And yeah, I just think there would be like something in there that I could probably discover.
Something with
so cool.
Yeah, animals or something.
Creepy, or either something creepy or animals, or yeah, like something along those lines. Or I've always just loved World War II. Like I just love learning about that time period, and as said, it is the Holocaust. I've always thought is just so interesting. Night by Elie Wiesel.
I was just thinking
it's
that.
just in my opinion, I love that book. Even though again, it's tough, but it's just so good.
We read it in like high school, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
That was like To Kill a Mockingbird when I remember reading it because it's one of the best books ever written, and I'm like, shit, he's guilty. I was like, what the fuck? I was so pissed, but then my teacher was like, yep, that's how it was.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, so I love how he sticks with his movies being before 1900. Like The Lighthouse is 1800s, The Witch is 1600s. I think The Northman is, it seems old as hell, like Viking times.
Yeah.
And then it just makes for cooler cinematography. And Brendan and I, during that film, there's one shot in the movie that we like flipped out about, and it was just like the most beautiful thing ever. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the carriage, right? The woods.
With Thomas.
Yeah. Right before the carriage pulls up, or right as the carriage is pulling up, it's the craziest thing. You hear the horses coming.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, I don't even know what the hell's coming towards him, but the lighting is just so cool.
It was like this dim blue, and it was dark all around, and you know he's in the woods, so it creates this like eerie, spooky factor to it. And of course, like it reminded me of Sleepy Hollow. I think I turned to you during the movie. I was like, "This is amazing! Like this is the best shot." And you were like,
"You were Ichabod Crane just going through."
I was waiting for a horse. These Foley artists in the movie did a really good job with like the different sounds.
I noticed that with the when Count Orlok would take a bite of somebody. Like, I wonder if they did like the cabbage or something, or you know how they do vegetables. You'll just hear.
Oh, that's weird.
Especially like Sam had to go pee, and there was this one crazy scene, and I just remember hearing the bite, and I literally thought to myself, I wonder if that was lettuce. It's such a weird thing to think about.
Imagine you were a Foley artist. They're like, you have to eat this lettuce, and you're like,
no way.
He hates lettuce. But then, when he's drinking their blood, it's like, and I'm like, this is freaking what's his name in There Will Be Blood. I drink our milkshake. They got him to do it.
I found it really interesting, speaking of drinking blood, is that like I feel like perhaps like when Nosferatu first came out, they didn't see biting of the neck as like so like sexualized or whatever, because he's biting like literally to their heart. Like he's trying to get into their heart basically, and but in most vampire movies we see today, like it's usually the bite of the neck right into the jugular or something, you know. So I found that kind of interesting because I was expecting the usual bite in the neck. He did do it with some people, but like most of the time, you know, he's just on top of them. It's crazy.
That's such a, and I love how Eggers just let the camera roll, especially when he did it to Thomas at first, because that's the first time you saw it happen. And I'm just like, this is so disturbing because the camera's just sitting there, and he is helpless. He's like, I can't. I thought he was gonna die, but I guess if you like drank all his blood, he's not dead. He was on the verge of death, I think, because he was able to make it back to
I guess he didn't
wherever
drink
they were, Germany.
The whole all of his blood. I guess he didn't drain him completely.
He just wanted a snack.
But it was funny though because like you said, when the camera stops and Count Orlok's feeding on Thomas or even whoever else, like the music would kind of go away. I'm not sure if this is for every case, but like let's say the scene with Thomas and he's in front of the fireplace, the music did go away, and it seemed like I was like watching like National Geographic, because there's no music when you're watching like animals in the wild. You know, it's just like this hyena or lion just feeding on this carcass. You know, it made it feel more animalistic, which is I feel like what Count Orlok represents a lot of. Yeah,
he's like half human, half animal, if you want to call it. But yeah, this back to the cinematography was so good. So Tom Chattelbash, shout out Chattelbash Reviews, he was like, Dune 2, this is rivaling you, I can't say the word, for best movie of 2024. And I was like 100%, because we saw Dune was amazing, but Nosferatu was fucking great. And I just think of how beautiful the cinematography was in that movie compared to this. Now it's a completely different film, sci-fi, and this is horror. But just, I mean, that shot and like when his hand would go over the entire city.
So creative.
Is so creative, and you're just like, wow, it's just his hand, and he has a hold over this entire city, and you just know that something bad is going to happen.
Because I feel like also too, if you just saw like Count Orlok just like flying over the city, it could come off like a little cheesy. So let's get a little bit more, creative.
Right.
And he can't turn into a bat really.
Did he not? He don't. Think
I never saw him. There was no mention of bats or anything. The only other animals I would ever see were those wolves that would sometimes pop up.
That's in Dracula.
Which,
those three wolves,
when you read me the book, which is in one of our older videos, Sam reads me a book, nighttime story, bedtime story.
Dracula's Guest.
Yeah, like the wolves like show up at some point or
towards the end, I think.
Towards the end, and then I could have sworn there was some by the carriage that like comes and picks up that guy too. And then when you see that shot with the castle in the background, which I thought was so cool as well.
Unreal.
They were following the carriage, which I thought was interesting. It was like his pets or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, and I like how Eggers is, like I said before, he sticks to the old time period pieces, I guess, because like Salem witch trials, and then the lighthouse and wherever they are. I forget where they were.
Could it?
I think it was like he was from Massachusetts.
Yeah,
he had like this old Boston accent, but this one's in Germany. But I like how he has like specific periods of time and specific places, and he must like the winter aesthetic or the old time aesthetic because he likes the use of he likes isolated areas.
Yeah.
So in The Witch, they're banished. The lighthouse, they're nowhere near civilization. In this movie, the castle is. They have to get through. He has to get through the village and then up to the castle.
I feel like also back then, like life was a bit more dreary, and I think that you can play into that because, like, God forbid you got a cold from going outside, like you could fucking die back then.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of play into that. You can play into just like the hardships of life. Like there's no cars to, Thomas has to go on a trek on a horse. Then he loses the horse,
and, he's like
he has to
time.
walk, and he's just like, oh my god, like it's just so terrible, so there's so much to play into. Everything's kind of dirty back then. They didn't know about bacteria, all that. So much to play into that life was so much more harsh, and then you could use the lighting and everything else to kind of go with that as well.
Very true. And we didn't know, and back then they didn't know about what certain animals were like, and what was I going to say? They also didn't know, or that type of stuff was not as accepted. So I wrote this down in my notes. We might get to it later. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played the blonde girl, Emma Corrin. She was in. She played. I was looking it up. By the way, these young actors, I love it because Timothée Chalamet, you're great. I've had enough of you. He's in fucking everything. But I like how these like young and up and coming actors are showing off their talent because they're so good. We'll get into it. But I felt like Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. You know what I'm talking about? He was the skeptic. He was so necessary as a character. And like nowadays, like you can go on Reddit, you can watch YouTube videos, and you're like, oh, I could see that being a possibility. Like conspiracy theories are more of a thing now. Back then, they'd be like, send him to the psych ward. So like what you were saying, going off of that, playing it being, because if he did this setting in 2024, you're like, oh, witches, like I could see that. But back then, you're like, oh, devil talk, take him to the psych ward. And anything that's different than religion, they're so afraid of. And like I loved his character because I think he's a skeptic, and it's important for two reasons. One, because I wrote this down. He's a skeptic for two reasons. One, no one during that time believed shit like that, right? So nowadays, like I said, conspiracy theories, they're on the table. And two, he knew deep down that something sinister was going on, but he could not get himself to believe it. Yeah. Because like when you see things like the drones, you're like, oh, I really hope that's like a couple of kids just acting up and it's not something else. So, yeah, but I'm going off on a tangent.
I think we always see, too, like in a lot of horror movies, there always is usually like somebody who's like a little skeptical. We'll take Hereditary, for example.
It's a good balance.
Yeah, that the dad is constantly just being like, stop it. Like, you're scaring everybody. Like, shut up, stop it. And then eventually they break, and then everything goes downhill because the one person kind of holding on to sanity and like giving us the perspective of like, yeah, maybe this does sound kind of crazy to everybody. And then, boom, once they're out the picture, then everything breaks loose.
That's a big turning point in Hereditary when he's
at the stoplight, he starts crying, and then boom,
you're like, fuck.
And the rest of the movie is just, it goes from like getting there to like after he starts crying.
Dunzo. So yeah, cinematography was amazing, and then I like how Eggers sticks with the actors, like Willem Dafoe. He has had him in other films, 100%. And what's his name? Ralph.
This is his fourth go around with Willem. I'm pretty sure. I want to say he was in Northman too.
Definitely possible.
Because then it would be The Witch, Lighthouse, Northman.
Wait, he's in The Witch?
Nosferatu. No, actually, he's not in The Witch.
He's not.
So sorry, it's third then. Then it says definitely his third.
Okay,
I'm
still,
sure
let's even using him a second time. But the dad from The Witch, I love his voice.
The wood chopper.
The wood chopper, yeah. All he's good at is chopping wood. Ralph.
Father of the Year award. I'm pretty sure we said in the other movie.
Father of the damn year. I saw something on Reddit that it was cool that Eggers played into the plague aspect in a post-COVID world. And it was an interesting take on it because if it was written back when he originally wanted to, maybe in 2015, it could have been maybe a little different. Like, so he was probably, when COVID happened, and because there's a big plague aspect too, because when the rats come on, they're like, "Oh, the plague!" But it's not really a plague. It's Nosferatu. So
what time
could have been different?
What time period are we saying that this movie takes place in? 18 something?
It's like 1830, I think.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
I'm saying like he wrote it in after 2020.
Yeah, I know. I would just wonder like what plagues were back then.
Well, the Spanish flu, I think, was in the early 1900s. And then...
I mean, honestly, anything back then. Wipe out a huge portion of anybody. Like I was just saying, there was no bacteria. They didn't care about bacteria or know enough about it or anything. Viruses, whatnot.
They didn't shower much. But the bubonic plague was in years before that, like a couple hundred years. But still, they're still well aware of it. And they used to like dump their trash on the streets and stuff.
Well, also I was noticing too, like there was like cattle in the streets. You know, like you don't go to New York City and see cattle. Right. I mean, you see the policemen with horses, on horses, but they're meant for something. It just goes to show, like back then, like I was saying before, how almost barbaric kind of and like gross back in the day, having cattle in the middle of the street, probably pooping everywhere, carrying every disease known to man. Then Orlok brings all the rats too. Crazy.
Which is there's a big ship scene in Dracula, and the wolves as well is a big part in that too. And I think there's like witches or something. That are in Dracula. I don't know, but it's pretty similar to it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's either it's witches or they're, because when Jonathan Harker is the main character, it's like similar to Thomas. He's going there because Dracula wants to move. And in this one, Willem Dafoe's like, no, like don't have him go.
Dracula wants to move. He's like,
Dracula wants to move.
I really can't stand my neighbor. I really just hate that he puts the trash right next to mine. And when he has his own trash can. It was funny today with Tom. Shout out Dash Reviews. The whole time I'm saying to Tom, I was like, Thomas in Back to Nosferatu. The whole movie is like, hey, would you mind just like letting me out of your castle? Like, come on now. Like, I really just got to get home to Ellen. And he's just like, no, I'm sorry, man, I can't do that. And Tom's just like, why not? And he's just like, and why do you have my wife's trinket? What are you doing? And he's just like, nothing to look at here. You're
nothing to see here.
Nosferatu's just like, nope, not letting you out of my castle.
Nope, see ya. You must retire to your corner.
It's so funny, but yeah.
That was so what I was saying is, I think they're like, as he's getting to the castle in Dracula, there's like these either witches or girls that are like coaxing or something. I forget. I'll have to, somebody in the comments let me know. Okay, so Lily Rose Depp was incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, like if she got an Oscar nod, I'd be like, yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Her dad must be proud because like she gave it her all. I mean, the scenes when she's like seizing and she'll just like cry on command, and she has like it embraces all these different emotions throughout the whole film. I was mesmerized.
And a lot of those emotions kind of come up in a matter of seconds because she's in some sort of weird trance. So 1 second she's crying, then she's sexual, then she's happy again, then she's laughing out of nowhere, then she's crying again, then there's only one tear running down. Like it's it's all over the place.
She's 25.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and she doesn't have a British
crazy.
accent.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
in real life.
Yeah,
I looked it up, so
that's cool.
must be true. But which is crazy because like how well British people could do American accents really well, but like the reverse is a little harder.
Like how?
But yeah, that's crazy. Or Gary Oldman. But if you can nail that, like that is just incredible.
Yeah.
But she was amazing, and every character was so good. I mean, I don't know like whose performance was. I think Bill Skarsgård took the cake.
This is insane.
Like I can't. It doesn't look like him.
Doesn't look like
it doesn't.
him. Doesn't sound like him.
Because all right, so give me your take on him because like it's hard to think that it's him because it's like Longlegs where you're like that's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Because the prosthetics are so good, the makeup, the way he sounds, the way he acts.
Any post editing too, like it's crazy. And like I kept saying to Sam, like he's just able to, keep a whole like kind of tone, but then also have a roll of the tongue, but also have an accent at the same time. Like I'm just like, how the hell do you do that? Of course, again, Shadowbest reviews. I kept going around. I'd walk in and go, "It is a bad omen." He's just laughing.
When you sent me the thing, he sent me a voice memo last night. Kyle was sitting next to me. We were watching Sam and Colby, and I was like, "Dude, film this." But sir, please.
It is a bad omen to travel in bad health.
It's a good Transylvanian accent.
Yeah.
Because if you ever watch Dracula, but it's like I want to suck your blood, but his is like a lot more darker, more eerie, and like he takes his time.
Yeah.
Like in Shadowbest reviews, when I was watching Tom's review, he was like, it was slow paced, kind of in a good way.
Yeah.
Like it takes its time, and I agreed with him because he was like, it's not a movie for everybody, which is so true.
Yeah.
Because like layman people, like you're. I don't know if you're looking for something like quick and jump scares, which there are a lot.
Yeah.
Like this takes its time, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah, because when we were walking out of the theaters, I heard people saying like, "Well, that sucked," and it's just like,
that's crazy.
Like, I could totally see why someone would say that because they're thinking that they're going to see like this horror movie that they can quickly turn on. It's just that kind of horror-y kind of feel where it's just in the background. You have some fun with your friends. But this
going
is
from house to house biting people.
Yeah, exactly. But like this is what I would argue is almost besides just being a horror film is like a tragedy of Macbeth. That should literally say the tragedy of Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Like because the whole movie is just like this. It's the tragedy of this girl and this love triangle, and that's what's crazy to me. But then with horror elements put into it, which is crazy. I said to you too, our friend Brian Richardson. What was that movie he showed us in Newport?
Oh, you said The Age of Innocence.
Age of Innocence, like it's again a love triangle. For some reason, people can't be with each other because of this or that, or there's always issues and blah blah blah. And same thing you see here. But then instead of them, like escaping together or something, people are getting killed, like around them,
right.
But whatever. So it's just that's what blew my mind. That's what I think the best thing is. And you said it too. It felt like we were just watching a play or like a musical or something. And that'd be sick if there was a Broadway Nosferatu. I'm a huge Broadway guy, so I would love to see
that. Would be sick. But it's it needed to take its time and unravel. And you needed to understand every element, and it didn't feel rushed, and they didn't leave out any plot holes. Maybe the only thing that we talked about was if we got more of whose backstory did we want more?
Ellen's, or like how Nosferatu or Locke and her, like why did he choose her? Kind of.
Right, because it's literally it's like Back to the Future. Like how did Doc and Marty become friends?
Yeah,
it's like he's hanging out with this old guy, and it's like she's sexually attracted to this vampire guy. Because in the movie she's just like come to me.
Yeah.
And there's that like crazy sexual scene,
Yeah.
that crazy jump scare, which is really scary. So I guess, but I don't know. It's more of a show don't tell. So it's kind of like in my writing class, they'll teach you like, don't say too much, let the reader figure it out.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to kind of get a little bit of why.
That's why I was kind of like thinking to myself, like, if they, like, let's say actually physically met together, like, to me, that part didn't really make sense. But then the other perspective I had was more of a, like, what Orlok actually represents. And then perhaps what I was thinking is if she met him as a teenager, perhaps it was more of a representation of her exploring her sexuality. And back then,
Growing up.
and then back then, women were considered like beautiful angels, like so innocent, so this and that. So by Orlok coming in, that's like the devil, because back then people would be like, "What? You're a woman. You can't be thinking about sex." You know, and as
you have
soon
to get
as
married at 18.
yeah, and then so like for a, let's say she was 14 to 16 years old when she first meets up with Orlok or whatever.
And really quick, when she has that like sexual encounter, she's on the lawn.
Yeah.
So it's almost like she snuck out of her house.
Yeah, like a teenager might do or
Right.
something. And then on top of that, she's, perhaps, I don't know, fornicating or something with this, or like I was saying, representation of her exploring her sexuality back then in a time when women were not allowed to do anything without a man. And,
Right. And it was marriage or bust.
Yeah. So,
Like if you were a 25-year-old single lady, they'd be like, "Are you well?"
and imagine,
okay?
imagine a teenage girl said to their mother or father, "I was having like sexual thoughts last night." They'd be like, oh, "The devil,
Yeah.
devil's in you," And
Look
then,
at the Salem witch trials.
yeah, and then so that's Orlok. So that's perhaps maybe I was just thinking of it in that sense, and then all of a sudden he manifests into like a physical thing.
Also
later
with,
on.
yeah, that's a great point, because it's a lot deeper than is on screen, of
Yeah.
course, and like it'll take a lot of time to think about it and unravel. We'll be talking about this for a while. But
Long
also,
Legs.
like what?
Like Long Legs. How long was that one? Like 2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours, something like that. But it just in general, we won't keep it too long. But even Thomas's character, I think it was him, where she was like talk to me or tell me like what's going on, and he just like wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because the stereotype of men is like they won't say much of their emotions. Back then, forget it. You're not getting anything.
Yeah.
So it's like both of them are having different issues that they can't really say much about, because she doesn't tell him about Orlok and all this stuff till 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
And
She mentions a dream, and then he dismisses it because, again, first off, it sounds kind of crazy. Second off, back then, again, your woman back then is telling you about these weird things, and you're just like, you're fine, shut up. And so, and then I feel like that's why she has such a connection with Orlok, because Orlok's the only one that's actually kind of being like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm like this too, like, come to me, come to me. And she literally says, okay, fine, come to me.
well, she's lost. Like,
Yeah.
she has no parents.
Yeah.
And then she's like, her whole life, she's like, I've been dealing with this, whoever this is, like, and it's a big fight. And then I find you, and then you go off.
Yeah.
But it's because of, ready?
Yeah.
Him coaxing him to go there.
Yep.
It's a triangle, because he's like, I have to sell this house. Like, I want to give you things.
Yeah.
And I kept telling you this. I was like, she said, I don't want like materialistic items. I want like your love. I want to break away from this. Like, let's go away. And now you're going away, and she doesn't even know that he's going to him. Which is crazy.
And just like that theme that we always kind of see, like it's just people always being lost in a lot of movies. Anything from Star Wars to horror movies, like the devil or like the dark side or whatever you want to call it, is always trying to prey on people who are like so vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
Just like her, or
Anakin.
like we could say Anakin, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you are lost. And because they're looking for something to just fill that void, and some people want that quick, right away kind of something to. It's been a long day.
Anakin leaves his mom, and then his mom dies, and then Obi-Wan dies.
Yeah.
And he's got to deal with, no, excuse me, Qui-Gon dies, and he has to deal with Obi-Wan, who's not really ready to teach him.
Yeah.
And then this guy's like, I'm going to save your wife,
And
like, I can be a father figure to you. Oh, they don't make you a master? Yeah. Okay. Why wouldn't he go?
And you were saying too, like no one was really listening to him.
No,
like Anakin.
that whole video of
He's like, hey,
Star Wars theory.
Hey, I think Palpatine is a Sith Lord.
Shut up.
Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I was in Pulp Fiction. What the fuck are you talking about? Sith Lord.
Same thing with Thomas. He's like, shut up. I gotta go and sell a damn house.
I'll be gone for 6 months.
Jesus Christ, woman. I gotta ride a damn horse, all right? Cars won't be invented for another 50 years or something.
Okay. So 2 things. One, I like this theory too. I think we've said this about a majority of the movies that we've seen. The Witch, Hereditary, and The Lighthouse specifically is like, Orlok could not even be real. Just because I was thinking about it, it's like, it's, you know, it's a vice that she has. It's like she's exploring her sexuality. Willem Dafoe's character never meets him. He was laughed out of his country. Remember, Ralph Ineson said that. He was like, I could talk to this guy, but he was laughed out of his country, but he's like our only hope. He's never met him. Yeah, Thomas met him, but like he wasn't really shown.
Yeah.
He was like in his cloak and he had long fingers. That could be a guy that's just doesn't cut his nails, is tall, has a really creepy voice. Thomas wasn't really healthy, wasn't eating much, drinking much.
Yeah.
He's scared out of his wits. That actor who played him, he's in Warm Bodies, that zombie movie.
Oh, yeah, that's what he was
him.
from.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, that's a classic.
I was looking at him the whole time, and I was like, I know him from something.
Yeah, and he's also in, I'll tell you right now. But also, it's like, it's from our perspective. We know it's Dracula, or excuse me, it's Orlok, but he's also in Mad Max. Remember when he sprays his face? That's him.
Okay.
But yeah, so like he might not even be real because it's like what you were just saying. It's a whole theory of like something that's in her mind and something that she wants, and she's the only one who meets him and Thomas. But like Thomas wasn't really well because when you think of people saying ghost, it's like, well, did you sleep a lot? Did you watch a horror movie before that? Was it something in your room that you saw? You having sleep paralysis? So like, who knows if we can really take Thomas's account seriously? It's definitely possible, but I like that theory too, that, you know, he might not even be real.
Yeah, for sure. Because imagine women back then too. They probably had to suppress like everything, not even just their sexual desires, but just like, hey, do you mind if I go like to the market? Fuck no, you can't be going to the market.
Are you out of your fucking
Are
mind?
you out of your mind, woman?
But I'm getting us food. Oh, okay. But wear all these clothes so no one sees you. But also, like, and then, I'm not just like siding with men here too, but it's like, hey, I'm like kind of feeling weird.
Yeah.
You hear, Mark?
Yeah,
Get him out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, you ain't chopping wood, like, see ya.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's, Jordan Peterson says, he's like, life before 1900 was like abysmal.
Oh, yeah.
It was horrible.
And that's why Robert Eggers can play into it. It's just, it's terrible.
Right.
Terrible life. No one gives a crap about like anything. And, you're dead. You know, everyone was so scared of death back then too. So.
Oh my God, yeah. And you live to like, fucking 40.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's a cool theory too, because the Lighthouse theory is cool too, because in the Lighthouse, Robert Pattinson's character, he like killed a guy in his past life. He changed his name, and then he's like, I don't drink anymore. And then he starts to drink, and then you don't know how long they've been on the island. And then Bailey talks about that too, where he's like, yeah, I don't think Willem Dafoe's character was even real. Like, it was just all in his head.
Yeah.
This movie's a little harder for that theory because multiple people saw him, and also at the end when he dies, there's a body laying on him. But like, I don't know. We know it. Also, really quick, when you were saying how she was like, I've had these dreams, and he's like, what are you talking about? Us as an audience are like, believe her, believe her.
Yeah, of course.
But everybody back then is like, they're so prone to not, like, from the Salem witch trials till now, it's just like, do not believe in that stuff. It's like God and nothing else. Just like in The Witch, he's like, pray about it and you'll be fine. You're like, what?
Yeah.
And then, because that's why Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is so great. But like, it's cool to have him keep a balance because you're like, oh, I could kind of like side with him because he's everybody else.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I'm normal. Like this is you're weird.
Imagine you're Thomas and Ellen's next door neighbor. You'd be like, what the fuck's going on over there?
Do you hear them? Yeah, I don't know. They're doing it again.
Hey, knock it off!
I know that. If you want to say anything about that theory, or do you want to add anything? Because I'm going to get into one more thing after.
About how Orlok might not be a real thing. Yeah. I feel like I was
because like in Hereditary, you're like, none of that could happen.
Yeah.
It's all in her mind.
Well, yeah, I think it could just be like a big representation of women trying to show something, but everyone around them is seeing it as like, oh my God, the devil! Holy shit, this woman is out of her fucking mind. Like, what do you mean that you are feeling horny?
Also,
something.
He's tall, he's big, he's got a deep voice, he's strong.
Yeah, we saw him naked. At
women
one point,
like that.
He was packing.
Right, but even she says when she's like quickly out of that trance, she's like, you don't please me as well as he does.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, he's really like getting into her head.
Yeah.
And what was I gonna say too? Shit.
Yeah, because women are just told back then too, like, you gotta marry. Don't have any fun. Don't do anything. Like that's it, And then she's probably never explored any sexual things at all, besides maybe like whatever she did with herself or something. And then that's maybe what was represented in the beginning. When she's coming to Orlok.
Well, because her best friend and Emma Corrin and Aaron Taylor Johnson they have 2 kids. They're expecting again.
Yeah.
She's behind.
Yeah.
And because she's been dealing with like these fantasies her whole life.
Mm-hmm.
She's considered like the bachelor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or the bachelorette or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like no, not married, but she finally found him. One other thing I wanted to connect it to is Midsummer. Mm-hmm. It's like, she has a douchebag boyfriend. Her sister killed her parents and herself, and she finally gets a family at the end, even though that family's whack.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Orlok is giving her something.
Yeah.
Even though he's obviously coaxing her and like having her sell her soul, pretty much. She's giving him something.
Just preying on the lost. That's always the theme.
One other thing is what did you make of that village in the beginning? Because I felt like that was kind of random. Mm-hmm. I think it was definitely just a quick spooky element to it.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of random. I mean, it was like he was taking a journey, and that was like an obstacle. Because it was like they were basically like, don't go there. And he was like, well, I don't understand your language, so I'm going to keep going because I need to make money for my wife.
Yeah.
It was kind of random.
Yeah, I feel like it was
It was quick. I feel like we were going to get more of that. Because it was in the trailer heavily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really know. It just was like a group of, I would say, probably lower class people that created their own village and
under his castle.
Yeah.
Pretty much like away from it.
And honestly, they've probably seen things.
Yeah.
But of course, being that they're, let's say, lower class and like no one's going to believe them. And they were offering a woman as a sacrifice, literally on a horse, a virgin woman, completely naked on a horse.
And he was like, "What?"
And they were ready to stab the body inside of whatever gravestone that was there. So, yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting. It was just like that creepy element to be like, oh shit, like they know what's up.
Yeah, because the cinematography was great. Because like it was the burning of the torches was like outside his window, and like you saw him like looking out like what's going on. And even then he's like half sleeping. Kind of he comes out. So like, did he even really see that?
And then his shoes had mud on them when he woke up, and then that's how he was like, oh, I think that did happen last night.
Yeah,
which was
right.
Which is
that's an indication.
Yeah.
Something they could have done something to him too.
Yeah,
because. Remember the guy turns around and like looks at him after he yells, and then he wakes up.
Yeah, and then
so
he
like,
just woke up.
Whoa, we just missed all of that.
And then I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, well, I guess he was dreaming. Orlok's messing with him on the way even. But then he had mud on his shoes, and he looked down, and I was like, oh, wait a sec.
Hang on. What happened here?
What's going on?
It wasn't just muddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Unless Orlok just comes down every once in a while and like literally like feasts on one of them every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he needs blood at some point. He's got to, he's probably not able to make it all the way to the city every single time.
Probably, yeah.
First off, that costs a lot of money, and Southwest ain't gonna take him there.
No.
Southwest ain't gonna take Orlok to the city.
American Airlines, they were having problems on.
So what's he gonna do? He's gonna feed on the little town that's right there. So they're like, all right, we'll give you somebody every once in a while. Just leave us the rest of us alone.
He's like, this tastes poor, but it's something.
Yeah, at least it's something.
Man, he went to town on Thomas.
Oh yeah,
He sucked the hell out of him.
Even
that was so disturbing.
Even that was kind of like weirdly sexual or something. I don't know.
Sure.
It was very strange.
If you watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, that's the title of it, 92 with Gary Oldman. It is a sex fest. It is. I remember watching it on the plane, and I was like, "We good here?" But it was very sexual, and I don't know if Bram Stoker, when writing it, intended it. I'm sure, but like they took it to another level in that movie. And some say that's the best Dracula adaptation. If we're counting Nosferatu, that's the best adaptation.
Yeah.
But very sexual, and I was telling you this on the phone after we saw the movie. I was getting so jealous for Thomas because it was just like I felt I was in his shoes, and it was like, yeah, she's doing it for, to get him to get killed because she's so done with it at the end. But even when she's like, you don't please me as well as he does, it's like you haven't met him yet. This guy, he could be fake. Yeah. But it was just it was the acting was so well, the writing, it just made you connect with them so much and feel so much emotion because you're like. It's a weird thing to say. She's like cheating on him.
Yeah.
But like, cause he's but he's taller, he's stronger, he's bigger.
Yeah.
He's like got this castle. He's more confident. And this guy's like, I have to go there so we can make money.
Yeah. Technically, like Orlok is rich too. Like he's got this massive
castle.
He's a count. He's able to give Thomas that huge bag of gold, I guess, or whatever. However the payment was back then.
With his long nails.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it just felt like I was explaining to you, like if some crazy, big, tall, handsome man tried to wow my girlfriend, like it'd be like, get the hell away, or when he's like, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'd be like, I get it, but like, get away.
Because imagine if you made Orlok 5'3", you'd be like, because in the Dracula from the 1930s, I think 1931. He's very handsome, slick back hair. He had the teeth. He's like, "What are you doing?" And
doesn't Brad Pitt play a vampire? Diary of a Vampire or Interview with a Vampire?
Yeah, Anne Rice's book. Yeah, Tom Cruise in that too. I haven't seen that. I should though.
I haven't seen it.
I'm not even a vampire like fiend. It's just like Dracula's written so well, and like the Dracula adaptations of Nosferatu is just so good. And that what I like about the original Dracula is like they all team up. And like Van Helsing and Jonathan Harker and Mia and like all the characters are just it's like a feel good movie. It's just good versus evil.
Yeah.
This one is fucking wild and talk about that ending scene.
Oh my God.
Talk about it.
Well, first off, one last thing too is I was listening to.
Wait, did you?
What?
Oh, I thought you changed your background to his painting. That he got the inspiration.
Shit!
I saw it on the side.
Yeah.
But go
That's
say what you're gonna say and then talk about the ending.
I was listening to an interview with Willem Dafoe on this one podcast. I think I just looked up like Nosferatu on Spotify, and then I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called. So unfortunately I don't know if I can give it credit, but maybe it's in my search.
You go to recently.
Willem Dafoe on the New Yorker radio.
Okay.
And he was saying that Robert Eggers, there's like so many adaptations of vampires just since
Twilight,
Bram Stoker to now, and like I think he said that they were getting not soft, he didn't use that word, but like very romantic, and so Robert Eggers wanted Orlok to be a monster, and we had to go back to the monster aspect, and I thought that was really cool because you're right. Like these days, I would say like our generation does think of vampires as maybe a little bit.
Twilight just made it happen.
Yeah, Twilight, like making it vampires where they have emotions and they're like they are very handsome or whatever the case might be, but like they're emotional and they're in touch with the humans. But
Orlok ugly.
Orlok is ugly. He's a freaking monster / human. I don't even know what. Like when he was naked, like I was like, and also
that's what made it so much like creepier.
Yeah.
Oh, like ugh.
Yeah, and that's what Robert Eggers said as well, where Willem Dafoe quoted Robert Eggers as saying that the depictions of a vampire are usually rotting skin and like monster-like, and so that's what he played up on this on Orlok, and I thought that was really cool.
Well, another thing you could say too is like he was the monster under her bed.
Yeah,
is what I kind of had like a feeling
like
about. Well, the original story of where Bram Stoker got the idea for Dracula is that there was tuberculosis cases.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was tuberculosis in Rhode Island, and I was listening to a Mr. Ballin episode, and this is a true story because Mr. Ballin does true stories, and it was off of Exeter, and you know how creepy that is. Brian says it all the time. He's like, that's the creepiest thing.
We were looking that up on the way to something.
Or maybe I told you about it.
Yeah, or something.
Well, I know that there's definitely creepy stuff that happened on Exeter, but if you know Exeter, Rhode Island, because I used to go from here to there to go to school, or when we lived there, it's just so creepy. It's woods and a narrow road, and it's like it goes up. So there were people that were getting sick, and when they would dig up the grave, they were not rotting. But it was because I forget why. I think it was because they weren't buried fully under the ground. Anyway, so they like had tuberculosis, so they thought they were vampires.
Yeah.
Or not vampire. They thought they were like, walking undead. So they would, dig up the grave and then they would like kill them or whatever. I'm butchering it, but Bram Stoker got that idea for it. So literally a corpse.
Yeah.
It's not going to be handsome.
Yeah.
So that's where he kind of got the idea. Also Vlad the Impaler, too. So there's a lot of different inspirations, but yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 100%.
So the ending, yeah.
That ending scene, like it was so beautiful, but it was like so like scary still at
disgusting.
The same time.
And it took its time too.
Yeah, and oh my god, the scream that Orlok gives out too. That's when you see like the real monster in him, because he does teeter between like human monster.
Especially in that scene, it's like I was saying to you on the phone. I'm like, this whole time he's this vampire, and he's in control the entire time.
Yeah.
He gets Thomas to get him to come there, sell his house. He gives him money, but the whole idea is to go to his wife. Yeah. I'm going to your wife. Yeah. Then he comes over in the box. He kills people on the boat with his sickness, and he lets all these rats come in, and then the town goes wild. And then at the end, he just does a makeout scene.
Yeah.
And then he has sex with her, and you're like, this is like any old guy.
Yeah.
But then she wins in the end.
Yeah. And
she does sacrifices.
And they had that one talk where they were talking. It was again, sometimes it was a little hard to understand only because of the accent. I wish I did have some subtitles sometimes, but they were discussing at one point who was being tortured more. Was it her or was it Orlok? Because Orlok is kind of like I don't remember exactly what it is, but like she's in a way she's kind of tormenting him with like making her almost want to feel emotions. But can he actually feel emotions? Is what they ask him as well.
She's also like, I'm using you too.
Yeah, because that's what Ellen says to him. Can you even feel love? And so who's being tortured more at that point?
Because she's so mad.
Because he can't feel love, or can he? We don't really know.
Right.
But she's trying to coax him into that to eventually try to kill him. And he's trying to bring her almost like over to the dark side to like discover,
So it's like it's a battle.
Yeah, and who's being tortured more is like the whole thing about it. And then they finally embrace at the end. But she does kind of end up winning for the good of humanity,
because she is basically like, and that one scene that like just got me is like she's literally, I felt her vulnerability too, because I'm like, oh, this is awful. Like she literally has to have sex with him. He's an awful person or vampire or whatever. He's disgusting, and she has a husband that she loves. She's literally. You were saying on the phone, she's like, she's so fed up with this, and she's willing to do this. It's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And when he's literally drinking her blood, and it's just like overnight because the sun comes up, and she's just like out of it, and he looks at the sun, and he literally looks. It's like Superman seeing kryptonite coming at him, saying, "Wow, this could kill me." And then she goes more, and he goes, "Oh, okay," and then continues. It's like she won.
Yeah.
Because it's I mean, you could look at it as us as men. It's like,
that's what I was
wow,
thinking too. Like,
look at that. Oh, I would do anything to be with that girl.
well, I know this sounds.
But she's no good for you. Whatever.
This sounds so strange to say, but like I found like a lot of similarities between Nosferatu and Beauty and the Beast. Like the way a woman is able to tame the beast inside each man. Let's say.
Oh, it's a great comparison.
And yeah, like he's willing to die and kill himself because it's just so great. And perhaps maybe in that moment he does feel love, and he's willing to just be like, at least I felt something, and then just. and then
he's bleeding out of his eyes. It's just amazing.
And it's just running down. But yeah, I discovered as well that Robert Eggers got a lot of that scene, the inspiration from Death and the Maiden, which is a painting from 1517.
We'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah, I forget the artist. We'll give him credit. You know, that 1517 guy.
Yeah, we love him.
I think he's a German artist, which makes sense. But Death and the Maiden, you see a woman and literally who's depicted as Death as like a humanoid kind of thing, lying together. And when they're finally deceased and kind of on top of each other, that's exactly what is depicted. It's just so cool. And like this painting really does almost kind of look like Orlok's dead body. Like, you know, just the face obviously, but is different. But like just all of that, you know.
What is he? Does he have a clock?
Yeah, he has a clock.
Yeah, time's up.
Yeah, because no one can outrun death.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's at noon.
Yeah, it's just so cool.
Not noon, but 12. It's so funny because like The Witch is probably my favorite horror movie, but like this is Eggers' best movie.
Yeah,
it's one of the best movies I've seen in a while. Like, I don't know if I see it again, like just because I love Dracula, and it's in 2024 anything is possible with movie making and cinematography and just acting is at its all-time high. I don't know. It's one of my favorite movies like I've seen.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it. I think when it comes out to be able to watch, I might watch it a bunch of times.
Oh yeah. Are you giving it in the 9s?
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
I don't know
it's
what.
So good. It's so good.
9.2, I think.
Yeah. The only reason why it wouldn't be higher for me is sometimes there were parts where like it was a tiny bit slow for me.
Yeah.
Personally. But other than that, I mean, it's just so sick. I became obsessed with it. Like after we watched it, like
I knew you were. I was like, Brennan's.
I went to bed that night because I was just so tired. But then the next day, like even like in between my students here at Caffeine, don't tell anybody. Every once in a while, I was like looking at like paintings. Were there any other paintings that got the Gothic style that's just portrayed in this movie is so cool. Everything just looks so like.
The Gothic horror.
The Gothic horror is just so cool.
Tom talked about that.
So cool.
That was after I watched Longlegs. I watched so many interviews with Micah Monroe, with the director, because I was just so hooked. This I definitely looked at some stuff, but I knew you were gonna really dive deep into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess a little slow, and maybe we could have got a little more backstory from. Ellen is her name, the main girl, and then the village was a little weird, but I mean we're just nitpicking, and it's still.
And then just sometimes like it was a little hard for me to understand, but perhaps when it comes out, like I can have the subtitles.
I said to you, I was like, I wish we had subtitles in the theater.
I was thinking it the whole time because I was like, this is kind of like The Witch. Like I feel like there are a couple things missing because I started doing some deep diving with videos and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's how that happened. I didn't even hear their conversation, between Willem Dafoe and Ellen, and like they kind of, all along made a plan kind of together without Thomas or anyone else really knowing, like that she knew that she had to do what she had to do, and they kind of discussed it. But unfortunately, it's just like this old English talk or whatever, and I'm just like
the deep voice of Ralph Ineson.
Yeah, and I'm just like, huh? What was that? What'd you think? Willem Dafoe's character was witty, kind of funny.
He was funny, yeah. And Tom talked about it in his review too. He was like, it was kind of like there was some dark humor to it. Mm-hmm. Also towards the end, I don't know if I was supposed to laugh too, because sometimes I'll naturally laugh during horror films because it's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
But this one I like try to keep.
Yeah, there was one point where I don't know. Again, I actually did chuckle, but I just hear Sam's classic "ha." like go through the whole theater, and I was just like, huh, yeah, it was funny. That was funny.
Well, it was one part was when Willem Dafoe was like, they get to the casket and it's not Orlok.
Yeah.
It's like you knew it wasn't. He was like, ha ha ha, like it was like, I've done it. But I just think like I don't know, he's at his wit's end with this whole thing. But
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe is just he's a legendary actor and everything he's in is great. And I knew I forgot he was in the movie, and then all of a sudden I heard a voice and I go, that sounds like Green Goblin. And I was like, oh shit, is Willem Dafoe in this? And I turned to you, I was like, sounds like Green Goblin.
Yeah.
His character was great. I loved it because it was their only hope towards the end, because they wouldn't have called him in the beginning because he was laughed out of his town. And this is what I was saying back then. It's like that stuff did not fly. Anything that was beyond reality, supernatural, sinister, something different than Catholicism or Judaism, whatever was different. It did not fly back then. So they kicked him out of his town or whatever. But he was a brilliant man, and he was like, somebody believe me. And he came in hot. He was like, I need this, and that.
Yeah.
I don't care what any of you saying about me. You're Aaron Taylor Johnson. You're a skeptic, whatever. But he was kind of like Van Helsing in Dracula, where he's like the really smart guy and he comes in to help out. So their characters are very similar. Willem Dafoe character is a little more mad, I guess.
Yeah.
But his character was great. It was needed, and
that's a good way. Mad. I like that.
he was mad, but
he was like a mad scientist or something.
Yeah, literally.
Coming in.
But he was like, at one scene they were like, well, what are we gonna do? He's like, let her rave.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like, this is what she's gonna do. Like, the more she does this, the more we need. So he was such a necessary character, and he was like, you had the skeptic, and then you had him, and they were completely different.
Yeah.
But they needed to be in the same movie, and they needed each other. So yeah, Willem Dafoe's character was really cool. He's like a mad scientist, definitely needed. But he was just he was very entertaining, and it was a perfect cast too, because it was great too to have him as Ralph Ineson. I don't know what else he's in, but they were like the veterans, and then you have like these young up and coming actors that are really good. And it was like it's like a baseball team. You need some veterans, but you need like the rookies too.
Yeah.
Like that's what
the guys,
helps it out.
Guys who are in their prime, but then you also need the guys who have at least won a World Series or two, or perhaps
They've
a lot.
been around the block.
And they can just rein in all that rookie energy, or whatever,
Exactly. Youth.
Yeah. The only thing I had written down here was the long thing. I was just trying to like figure out. I kind of already touched on it because like it took me a little bit to try to figure out like what exactly maybe like Orlok represented or something. But I just said I feel like he is certainly just what lies within us all as humans, which is an animalistic sexual desires. Sex is really the one thing us humans do, which bring us back down to a more primal level, which is when he's sucking on people's blood, like the music goes away, and then it does look like a lion just eating a carcass or something.
Literally,
and
he's not on the neck; he's on the heart.
And just depicting it as a monster is so genius, because it sometimes some of the things we do as humans are like perhaps sex is very animalistic and just. I don't know if scary is the right word, but just like aggressive. There's like a part of us that's still in us we just can't
untamed.
Help. Yeah.
But really quick from that, because if he wasn't a monster, it'd be The Age of Innocence.
Yeah.
It would just be
100%.
It would be a love triangle movie, but you need him to be a monster.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also the time period of when Nosferatu came out, and perhaps the time period of when it takes place, women were just viewed as super innocent, and for Ellen to be behaving like she was so uncommon back then. So it was just woman's loss of innocence, which when it first came out in 1922, people were probably so, turned on, but also disturbed at the same time because, they didn't make horror movies, back then. And so they're like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? They're seeing this. I actually read a Reddit post that this guy asked his grandma when it first came out, what was it like? Because she lived in Germany or wherever, and she said that
because this is before like Hitler's reign.
Yeah, and she said that her house was only 7 blocks away, and she literally ran to her house and put the covers over her when she was, like 20, back in Germany, 1922 or whatever. And she said it was the scariest thing I had ever seen, because when did we ever see an actual vampire on a screen,
That still to this day, the original Nosferatu is like so creepy, and that's what makes that SpongeBob episode so creepy. They picked him as like for a reason.
Yeah, I remember going back when I first saw that episode. I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
What?"
I said this too when we did the trailer review. I was like, "This movie's from 1922. We're watching SpongeBob in like early 2000s.
Yeah,
no one, not even our parents." I don't think our grandparents, too, knew who that guy was. It is so random.
Yeah.
But they just picked him because it was just such a creepy episode. Also, what I was thinking, too, when you were saying how when he's, like, drinking the blood, this is going to sound, like, really, like, weird and, I don't know, just how it is. Well, the movie's very sexual. When he's, at the end, when he's, like, sucking the blood from her, he's not done. He hasn't finished.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Even so, like, anything outside is not going to distract him. He will complete what he has to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's the light that will kill him.
Yeah, yeah.
So, literally, like, because it's the blood is, he has to feast. It tastes so good. It's like when we're, like, say we're eating an unbelievable meal, and somebody's like, we got to go. I'm like, I'm not done eating. I'll be with you in a minute. Like, I'm only halfway through my meal. I'm not completed. And, like, so I think that was just, it's just so amazing that one scene. He literally is like, oh, death?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I want more. Oh, okay.
That
is mind-blowing to me.
That's what made it so, like, beautiful,
connected
but
to
weird,
human,
but, like, connected to humans. Like, and he finally was able to feel something, and then he passed. And then it's, again, Beauty and the Beast, the woman able to tame the beast.
You're right. It's right before he dies. And do you know that when she said, do you even feel love, did he even say anything after that?
I don't know.
Because that was a literal dagger to the heart, which is what kills vampires.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's fine.
And I like how she kept her, like, composure, too, because also through the film, you're like, is she in a trance? Is she with us right now? Like, I can't really tell, because her acting is so good. She's, like, rolling her eyes and then going in and out, and she's like, towards the end when she's talking to him and she's so fed up, like, he's like, you have three nights or whatever. She's like, you don't even feel love, blah, blah, blah. And she's just so fed up with it. And I like how she kept her composure, because it's literally like everybody else was, or Thomas was, remember his scene where he's like literally shaking when he sees him? He's like so afraid. She's like this to him. She's like, literally, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm done with your shit.
Yeah.
Like, and he's a literal vampire.
Yeah.
She's like unfazed.
Not to sound too vulgar, but she literally has him by the balls.
Yeah.
She literally has him by the balls.
But that's an important note, because she wins in the end.
Yeah.
And it's like we're talking about how, women back then, like, she was behind her friend. No, she's not married. She has no kids.
Yeah.
She's like an old maid or whatever. But she has to get there for a reason. But it's important because in the end she wins and the town wins. And what's interesting too is, like, I'm not saying women were seen as second class, maybe back then. I don't know. But it's like, oh, okay, so this young girl not married just saved your ass.
Yeah.
This whole town. Oh, okay, maybe we should take them more seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
She literally killed herself for
it's like
that.
All of us were running away screaming from, like, the plague and whatnot, and this innocent girl just saved us, or a woman just saved us. That's a lot to say for a woman back then.
She's a beast.
Yeah, she is a beast.
Remember when they're walking?
She's a motherfucking problem. A Lil Wayne line.
Okay, you up with a goblin. Nah.
Oh, it kind of all makes sense with what we're talking about. Goblin. He looks like a goblin.
Hey, Lil Wayne knows.
A beast, see a dog.
That's why I said beast. Remember when they're walking? Her and Thomas are like walking away because they got like they got kicked out or something. I don't know. And they're walking to the streets, and everybody, like you said, is like a plague. Everybody's like dying in the street.
Oh yes, I remember.
They're literally like moving forward. They're like the whole thing is a journey for them to just defeat what is going on, which is so great. We could talk for hours.
I know.
So I'll say 9.2.
Yeah, I was gonna say a 9.3. The other scene that I really liked, really quick, is Sam was tinkling.
Yeah, I got because I had it was Christmas, so we were consuming a lot of food.
Yeah.
A lot of drinks.
I was full as hell. Oh
I had Cheez-Its and a seltzer, and I was like, I gotta get up. And of course, the scene when he offs the two girls.
Orlok just swoops in, and the thing that is crazy too is who's the skeptic? What's his name again?
Aaron Taylor Johnson. I don't know his name in the movie.
So he does not believe a damn thing, and then his wife and kids die by the hands of Orlok. They all get eaten.
So that guy you're talking about, yeah, I think I believe it.
And then you see him like at their by their coffins, and he's just like, I can't believe it. Like,
That's awful.
It was true. It was true. And if only he believed, maybe he could have done something.
What other movie would you think where it's like someone's a skeptic to the max, but it has to take a literal event for them to believe it?
Yeah, I feel like that comes up a lot. I can't think of one.
Maybe
right
I
now,
guess
but...
the dad in Hereditary.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah,
I don't know if he
yeah,
actually saw something. I think it was after.
Well, he gets burned alive. So
Well, yeah, that.
he can't even be around anymore. If he was just like, oh, maybe I should have believed my wife. Well, I'm on fire.
Spontaneously
it hurts.
That's why I think it's in there, because he's just spontaneously combusting. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But also, well, I think it was right after Peter smashed his head on the table.
Oh, yeah,
and then
yeah.
he starts crying.
Yeah.
He's like, I think it's there's something going on here.
Weird. But yeah. Bro, yeah, we could keep talking about this all the time.
All
Honestly,
day.
I would even maybe bring it up if we watch it back again at home.
We might do a part 2 or something.
Or we could do a comparison of the old one and the new one.
We could do that.
And the 1971. Just all three of them, blend them together, see what happens.
And then I got to get you to either see Dracula or read Dracula.
Yeah.
I'll read another Dracula story to you, or the audiobook, but it's one of the best books ever made. So yeah, that was our review of Nosferatu. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. You better get your ass to the theater. If you're not a theater person, watch it on streaming, because it is one of the best movies you'll see. Like Tom said, it rivals Dune for the best movie of the year.
For a horror movie, that's amazing. That's so sick. But like I said, the tragedy of Nosferatu would be, I could totally put that in the title and it would totally make sense.
It would, yeah. It's not a tragedy, Alan. It's a tragedy of Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, he's just chilling in the castle. He doesn't really have much of a life, terrorizing a little town.
Yeah.
And then, he's working his way to, he's very methodical and takes his time.
Or
It is a tragedy.
the tragedy of Ellen and Orlok. And don't even call it Nosferatu. And you'd be like, I wonder what this is about.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yep, so that's it. Stick around, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we should review next. And take care.
Good night, San Diego.